Black and gold fans, college football fans, welcome in or welcome back to the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog, where we examine, discuss, celebrate, and honor all things college football across the entire college football landscape, but with a very special emphasis on our beloved black and gold squad of the Iowa Hawkeyes. On today's episode of the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog, I will finally address or undress the updated contract and the added contract amendments to Iowa's much embattled offensive coordinator, Brian Ferentz. And in doing so, I will present you with the facts of the updated amendments based on my opinion, then give you the good, the bad, and the ugly of those amendments and his new contract, and then give you my opinion overall. Did the University of Iowa do enough to save face for the offensive woes of last season and, quite frankly, the last couple of seasons? So that's what's on tap and what's on up on today's episode. And welcome back. I'm your usual host, Blair Parks. It's great to be back with you once again. I apologize for my tardiness. You know, as what happens, life does happen. I've gotten a little caught up in some issues here on the home front. And also, I've been a little bit distracted by some of the sports in this great nation of ours. If you don't know, spring is now officially upon us. It's a great time to be a sports fan. MLB opening day was last week. The playoffs are just on the horizon in both the NHL and the NBA. Their seasons will be wrapping up within the next 2 weeks. As I record this, as I speak, the second round of a tradition unlike none other, the Masters, they are teeing it up there in Augusta, Georgia. And also, if that means that the March Madness Final Four has finally concluded, and quite frankly, I have been so caught up in the Iowa women's, the Lady Hawkeyes run to a Final Four, and then ultimately to the national championship game, which they could not. They came up one game short. They were not able to win a chip and hoist the trophy. They fell at the hands of the LSU Lady Tigers basketball program. So I want to give big congratulations to both the Lady Hawkeyes and the Lady Tigers. What a great national championship game we had. Great matchup. And if you're a women's college basketball fan, this is a great time to be alive. I mean, this year has put women's college basketball on the map. And more specifically, if you're a Iowa Hawkeye fan, I can't wait to see this team run it back next season and to see what they can do as an encore. Caitlin Clark comes back, who this year is something we cannot debate. She is the best player in the nation. She has all of the awards and the title to officially back that, even though this guy absolutely thinks she should have been the player of the year last season, but that's a whole nother topic. So she comes back next season, and I can't wait to see what happens. So I've been a little bit invested in that. So that's why I've taken a couple extra weeks off here from the channel, but it's great to be back with you once again. And for all of you, the members of the Black and Gold family, thank you for all that you've done for the channel. It's much appreciated, but I need your help. I want to gather all fans of not just the Black and Gold, but all of you college football fans and fanatics alike. This is a safe haven. You are more than welcome here, a gathering spot for all things college football. And as I've said before, you, the viewer, the listener, you are the ones who drive these episodes ultimately. I always encourage and ask for your involvement. Please let your voice be heard. Comment, let me know what you think about my insight and what I remark during this episode. I promise you, sooner than later, I will get back to each and every one of you individually based on your comments. So please get involved and let's gather more college football fans just like you. So please like, share, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, get involved, comment, like, share. I can't wait to hear from you. All right, so let's go ahead and get to today's episode, the topic of the day, about offensive coordinator Brian Ferentz's new contract. Now, this contract came public roughly about 6 weeks ago, but I wanted to take a little bit of time to let this kind of sizzle and just kind of simmer down a little bit before I addressed it, because I then wanted to see how it was going to be taken by members of the media and Hawkeye fans alike to kind of get a good idea of the general response to these updated contract amendments. So a good place to start, though, is to do a quick rewind and bring you up to speed on how the Iowa offense performed last season. And quite frankly, it's going to be a very, very quick segment. You know, if you kept up with Iowa's offense or Iowa's program last year, I'll say this right out of the gate, guys, that the Iowa offense was the laughingstock of college football last year, and deservedly so. I mean, when you perform the way they performed, or saying it more specifically and more correctly, underperformed, which they did, then you deserve all of the chatter and all of the clapback that they got. They just did. I mean, they were a laughingstock, and there's no way to sugarcoat that or candy coat it. You know me, I don't do that on this channel. And that proves right there I'm not one of these Homer Simpsons. I try to be as objective as possible, and I let you make up your mind what you think about my statements here on this channel. So please subscribe, comment, get involved. So let's do a quick rewind of what transpired last season. Overall, Iowa went 8-5, 5-4 within Big Ten Conference play, following their Music City Bowl victory over Kentucky. So that was definitely a good way to end a much embattled up and down season. Losses that ended up being not bad losses. They lost to both Michigan and Ohio State, which those two teams ended up representing half of the college football playoff field from last season. So 2 of those 5 losses, definitely not bad. I mean, nothing to get too upset about. But they did have a couple of poor, what I would call bad losses. They lost the annual Cy-Hawk Trophy game against their in-state rival Iowa State at home inside Kinnick Stadium. And Iowa State did not go bowling last season, a very kind of down year, but definitely a rebuilding project there in Ames for Coach Matt Campbell. And they also lost on Black Friday to Nebraska, a game that yours truly was in attendance for. And that was really a bad loss. Nebraska did not go bowling either, but also through thick and thin, all of the good, the bad, and the ugly of last season, if Iowa would have won that game against Nebraska, they then would have advanced to the Big Ten title game in Indianapolis against Michigan, and they would have claimed the Big Ten West Division crown, even with all of their struggles. So it was unfortunate to see, especially at home. That loss also came inside Kinnick Stadium to the Cornhuskers, the Big Red. Now, something that is, I need to say this. Primarily, I am going to focus on the offense today, guys, but I need to also give you the perspective of how the defense and special teams performed, because I think this absolutely helps someone sway, just how good or bad the offense really was. But in my estimation, when I give you this information, it really, really kind of casts more of a poor light optically on how bad the offense truly was. I'm talking historically bad, okay? So last season, the Iowa defense allowed 10 points or less in 9 of the 13 games they played. 9 of 13 games, guys, 10 points or less. And it really should have been 10 out of 13. Another game that I was in attendance for was the homecoming game against Northwestern. Northwestern scored a garbage situation touchdown on the last play of the game, which I believe gave them 13 points on the day. So truly, If they stop them, time expires, they are going to hold 10 out of 13 opponents to 10 points or less. That, I don't care. This is, once again, I'm not being a homer, but just saying that shows you just how elite the Iowa defense is. And quite frankly, they've been doing this for seasons, guys. You look at the stats, stats don't lie. Okay, the Iowa defense is elite, very quietly, but I think they're no longer a secret. I think now people know just how good they are, okay? And every year they've been for numerous seasons. And it's really a shame that we're wasting a great defense in Iowa City. I mean, they're really on an unprecedented run with how good the defense has been, but also Iowa's special teams. Okay, how good they are. Field goal kicking, punting, punt return, punt coverage, kickoff, everything that they're doing as well. I mean, you have an All-American punter, probably Iowa's MVP last season, the punter from down under, Torrey Taylor, who is coming back for another season. I'm very excited about that. And your best athlete, Cooper DeJean, is Iowa's return man on punts. And I believe he also returned at least 2, maybe 3 pick sixes this season. He's a starting defensive back. So that just shows you that right there how good Iowa's defense and special teams continue to be. I mean, they just are. I mean, that's all I need to say about that. So this is the overall numbers of Iowa's offense last season. They finished 130th. Out of 131 possible teams in total offense. So, hey, they didn't finish dead last, but basically they're last. I'm sorry. So 130th overall for total offense. They averaged a mere 17.7 points per game, which ranked 123rd in the nation out of 131 teams. Now, this stat is really mind-blowing, especially right now in the atmosphere and the time that we are in college football when it's really offense, 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 points, points, points. That Iowa's quarterbacks last season, between Spencer Petras, which, yes, this is a number 7 jersey. It's not Spencer Petras. This is referring to Iowa's wide receiver, Marvin McNutt Jr. I've heard this several times on here. You know, you're breaking out a Spencer Petras jersey. It's not true. So between Spencer Petras, Alex Padilla, and Joe Labus, the Iowa quarterback room only threw for 7 passing touchdowns last season, guys. 7 passing touchdowns. Some teams are doing that in 2 games, if not 1 game, okay? And to make matters even worse, Iowa's defense as a total unit scored 7 touchdowns themselves. So right there, where would they be without the defense in these games to help bail them out or to put them either to manufacture points or at least put the offense in the best opportunities to create points? And here's something else. I just said 17.7 points per game. That's bad, okay? But when you take away those 7 touchdowns that the defense scored, and also they had 2 safeties last season. I think actually they had 3, but I remember there were 2 safeties in the opening game of the year, kickoff weekend of Labor Day weekend. They had 2 safeties against the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. So when you take away those direct points that the defense scored, Iowa's offense accounted for only 14.2 points per game. That's right. 2 touchdowns a game is all that they were able to tally, taking away the points that the defense directly accounted for. I mean, once again, that proves how good the defense and special teams are in Iowa City. I mean, they're really unparalleled. I mean, they're unrivaled. I'm sorry, they just are. Other things here to know of as far as passing yards per game, another really, I hate to say pathetic, definitely an embarrassing stat. Iowa's quarterbacks, vertically, they accounted for only 157 yards passing per game. Very, very bad. Actually, when you look at that stat, 157 passing yards per game. There was only one team behind them at the Power 5 ranks, and that was the Rutgers Scarlet Knights with another Big Ten team. So second to last in passing yards per game among Power 5 teams in Power 5 conferences. I mean, just embarrassing, okay? So when you look at these numbers, and they speak for themselves, and when you looked on the field, you could see for yourself what the problems were, okay? And that it wasn't just quarterbacking. It was also the scheme of the offense. The offensive line continues to be so hit and miss, hot and cold, and that's what I think is the first issue with Iowa's offense. Their offensive line the last 3 seasons has been poor, I mean very poor, and that unit has to perform. Because without that, Iowa can't get their running game going, which means then they can't get their option game going. They can't get their play action going. Nothing offensively. Okay? So there's so many areas. It's like putting a bandage on a shark bite, okay, or a chainsaw issue. You can't stop the bleeding. It's not just one thing. But the man who's on the spot, who has to answer for these struggles, is Brian Ferentz, the offensive coordinator. So at the end of the season, definitely action was needed. Something had to be done about this lack of offense under Brian Ferentz's regime, under his watch. Something had to happen, okay? A change, some sort of punishment, outright termination. Maybe you go back to teaching or being the unit coach for tight ends or offensive line, which is what he has experience with. Right now, being the OC, he's also the quarterback's coach. He was never a quarterback himself. Once again, he was tight end and an offensive line guy. And in that capacity, Iowa's offense did very well. Okay, so maybe he's just not the man for the overall OC position. So action was needed, change needed to take place. Action was taken. All right, and I'm about to go ahead and present that to you via these new amendments. So action was taken, but the response by Iowa is also going to be listed below, and I ask you, after I give you this information, was it enough? Is it something that you believe was reasonable? Was it fair, unfair, strong, strong enough, not strong enough? Let me know what you think about this. All of you college football fans, I want to hear from you. Please comment below, subscribe, like, share, rate, get involved. Okay, so now let me go ahead and present to you these updated amendments to Brian Ferentz's contract. Okay? So, first of all, his salary was reduced, which, I'll get to that. At the end of giving you these amendments, I will further kind of state the good, the bad, and the ugly, in my mind, of these new amendments. First of all, there was a salary reduction of $50,000. He went from $90,000 a year to $850,000. The offense, there is a stipulation that says the Iowa offense must score this upcoming season, 2023, 25 points per game. That is what they must score each and every game. The Hawkeye program in general has to win at least 7 games. So that was another stipulation, that the win total can't really fall off. They have to win at least 7 games during this upcoming season. And if these incentives and goals aren't reached, Brian Ferentz would receive, his contract would be officially terminated on June 30th of 2024. So if these stipulations aren't met, he could be shown the door. Now, if these amendments, incentives, and goals are reached, Brian Ferentz would receive a raise of $925,000, so he would get back his initial contract and then some, but that is not including an additional bonus of $112,500, which would push his 2024 salary over the $1 million mark. So he would find himself the next millionaire in the state of Iowa. So those are the amendments. These are the expectations now that Brian Ferentz must reach. If he does, here's your reward. And if you don't, here's your punishment. Clear as day. So I'm going to go ahead now and start off from these amendments as an Iowa fan, individually, what I believe is this exactly one of my favorite sound bits. Time now, let it play. Love this one. It's time for me to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly of these new contract amendments. So let's go ahead and start with the good, okay? Now, this is one thing that, depending on your opinion, either you can get behind or not. You agree or disagree. So this new contract, the University of Iowa and the Iowa football program specifically, they have provided full disclosure and details of this amended contract publicly. Now, I like that. I was kind of on the fence initially, but I like that they have let us know exactly this is what we expect. They did not mince words. Some people thought, and initially I was like, you could have still said enough to make the same point, but not divulge too much. Like, you could have said, we expect the win total to be at least matched, if not exceeded. We expect the Iowa offense to score more points. And if not, contracts would have to be renegotiated, if not given. And, Brian Ferentz could find himself without a gig. But to their credit, they definitely provided full disclosure to the public. And I overall think that's better than not. Even though, like I said, you could have said less and still made the same point, all right? So I think that's the good, that they're not throwing up some smokescreen or losing things in translation. We know exactly what to expect as Hawkeye fans, all right? Another thing of the good, the $50,000 loss in revenue definitely had to happen, because when it comes down to it, one thing that everybody understands is when you lose money, that tends to make a point. Okay, so I definitely did agree with the loss of some revenue, or at least guaranteed revenue, for this upcoming season. Now, 25 points per game. I also believe that this is good. Now, once again, in the age of offensive college football, to some of you, 25 points, you might be thinking, 25 points by halftime? No, this is a step in the right direction for the Iowa football program, okay? So that's 8 points more than what they averaged last season. And I'm going to give you a stat. And I thought I had it written down, but I don't. During the last several seasons, and I think it was 4 or 5, but I don't want to quote it because I don't want to be misquoted. But during the last several seasons, guys, when Iowa scores 25 points or more, they're 55-3. That's getting it done. That is absolutely uber impressive. Once again, that's just asking your offense to be average. Be average, score, take care of the opportunities that you have to produce and manufacture points, and let our defense and special teams aid you in that. So I'm okay with it. Some of you might have thought that total of 25 is too low. Maybe there's some of you who think that's too high. I don't know. But I think 25 is a good starting point, okay? But I am going to refer back to this average points per game here in a little bit on the flip side of this argument. If these performance incentives and goals are failed to be met, his contract will be terminated and negated, which would result in the termination of Brian Ferentz as Iowa's OC. Now, does that mean he'll be outright fired and, hey, grab a box, you have 5 minutes to vacate the facilities and the premises? No. Then maybe he might transfer to another spot on a different offensive unit. Once again, maybe go back to tight ends coach, offensive line, who knows? It's good, though, that he is going to be held accountable, okay? And this puts public pressure on Brian Ferentz and also head coach Kirk Ferentz, who happens to be Brian's father, that there's no more ducking this or saying we aren't going to do anything. It puts pressure publicly on Brian Ferentz and the offense to perform and to get it done. So I definitely think that's a good, okay? I think this is his last chance to prove himself and what can the Iowa offense do. I mean, just be average, okay? That's it. That's all you really have to do. That's basically what this is saying, okay? Now the bad, okay? Referring back to the 25 points per game stipulation, this amendment in his contract, the one thing that I don't like about that is it doesn't really expand on 25 points per game. The contract does not specify how or by who these points should or need to be generated by. So let's say your defense gives you 3 touchdowns a game, okay? So then the Iowa offense, maybe they give you, and the special teams give you a touchdown and a few field goals. Is that 25 points or more? Yes, but this contract does not say that must be 25 points generated directly by the offense. It just says 25 points in general. So what I really have a problem with is that, even more specifically, is we know what the Iowa defense and special teams will give you. You can rely on those 2 units, the defense and the special teams. They will give Iowa 8 points per game, whether it's directly a pick 6, scoop 6, 2 or 3 field goals, a safety, a punt return, or a punt return that puts you in primetime real estate offensively. They will set you up directly or indirectly to get 8 points per game, okay? So I think they needed to be a little more specific on 25 points per game directly from the offense, not any way you see fit, okay? And the other thing about this is it doesn't really say, it just says average. It doesn't really say average per game. So let's say you struggle. I mean, the toughest game that Iowa has, probably on their upcoming schedule for this season, they play at Penn State in Happy Valley against the Lions, who probably will be a preseason top 10, top 8 team. So let's say they manage to score 10 points against Penn State, whether they win or lose, okay? So obviously well below the 25 points. But let's say they run it up in a non-conference game or against Rutgers. Let's say they put up 48 points or 45 points against Rutgers. So then that's going to bring that average up. So I don't really know how they're going to gauge this. Is it going to be per game or just at the end of the season? Boom, 25 points. That's what we want. Is it average or average per game? So it's still kind of mucky and a little unclear how they're going to ultimately decide that, okay? I mean, I want you to score points against your best competition, okay? Within reason, all right? But you shouldn't just have to worry about running it up to get to that average, okay? 7, another thing about my last point on the bad, okay, is 7 wins is the goal for this upcoming season for Brian Ferentz and the offense under his control. Now, 7 wins out of a possible 13. That's saying if Iowa gets to bowl eligibility, which they will need to if they're going to get to 7 wins, okay? So 7 wins out of a possible 13 when you factor in a potential bowl game, okay? My only question and issue with this is, okay, how is this any different from what the Iowa football program does right now? This in no way, shape, or form really says the offense and overall team win totals have to improve. It doesn't. Because when you look at that magic number of 7 wins, is that not typically what we can expect year in and year out from the Iowa football program? We know what they're going to give us. Most every year they're going to give us between 7 and 9 victories a year, you know, with the 13th game of the bowl game. That's what we're probably going to get, between 7 and 9 wins. So why is this offense then expected to have to do better and get more victories? I don't really understand that. Because a stat to further back that up is the last time Iowa won 7 games or more in a full season was 2012. Okay? So 10 plus years. All right? So once again, how much better must the offense be to producing more victories? I think that's bad. That is a bad look. Okay? I'm just saying optically, it doesn't look good. All right? Now, finally, to the ugly of these amended contract stipulations for Brian Ferentz. I really only have one. And then I will give you my overall opinion of what I think about these these amendments to his contract. The ugly is, now I already told you that if these new stated performance incentives and goals are met and accomplished, Brian Ferentz would officially become a millionaire. Okay? So for merely seeing 25 points or more on the scoreboard at game's end or conclusion, win or lose, and notch 7 victories, he's going to cash in. He's going to be the next millionaire in the state of Iowa and across this great nation. Okay? So he'll get his initial contract salary back, and then with these bonuses become a millionaire. Okay? So in other words, when I look at that, to me it's basically he's going to get paid to simply just do his job. I already said 7 wins a year is what we can pencil this program in for. So he has to match that and just to get to 25 points. And once again, it doesn't have to be 25 points directly from his offense. It's just as a team. So if he does that, he's basically, in my opinion, just doing his job. So why should we further reward him when he's just doing what he's supposed to do? All right? It's not, if you meet those 2 goals and stipulations, you're not going above and beyond. You're doing really the bare bones average and marginal. You're doing what we've gotten used to as Iowa fans. Okay? And we're supposed to then reward him for doing the same job. Over $1 million is what he can make if this happens, if he's able to accomplish these goals. So to me, if that happens, the offense really just remains status quo. Have you really fixed it? Are they really in a better position? Okay, and I think the answer is probably no. I mean, so I think the possibility of giving him a raise and a bonus is just kind of asinine. Okay, that's how I see it. Yeah, sure, give the guy his initial salary before taking away the $50,000. Yes, absolutely. Give that back to him because he's earned it. Or if you want to give him a small bonus, maybe $50,000 more, which you could say, hey, you got a $50,000 raise and your contract, you're safe here for employment. Why is that not enough? I don't get it. Why do we have to push him over the $1 million mark? So that absolutely is the ugliest of the ugly to me. I want to hear from you on what you think is the good, the bad, and the ugly of this amended contract. Please get involved, comment, like, share, subscribe, rate. Now, to wrap this up, here is my overall opinion. As a Hawkeye fan, as a sports fan, I'm going to let you make up your decision in your mind, form your own opinion. I'd love to hear from you once again. Please comment. But this is where I am. Win, lose, or draw, I am always going to support this program because I am black and gold through and through. Okay? Even though currently I live in the show me state of Missouri, I grew up in Northwest Illinois, hour and 10 minutes east of Iowa City, so I have been a Hawkeye from birth. Thank you to my father, God rest his soul, and my brother who continues to light that fire and keep it burning in me. So win, lose, or draw, I'm always going to back this program. I will always watch. I will always support. But I can be very fair. When I look at my observations and my critique, it's very fair. I don't beat around the bush. I'll be the first to say they're really good or they're really bad. Okay? I just will. Good or even bantha fodder. Okay? From Star Wars. Okay? So here's my opinion. Was this a strong enough response to Iowa's woes? Did Gary Barta, the much embattled, also another embattled member of University of Iowa, the much embattled offensive coordinator, Gary Barta, and the football program, was this response correct? I say absolutely not. Okay? I agree with them taking some action because they needed to do that. All right? I actually didn't think that he should be terminated outright before the start of the 2023 season. I was expecting him to be removed from that position, that post, and once again go back to coaching tight ends or the O-line or be an assistant offensive coordinator. I don't know. Do something. And then take away some of his salary. I thought that would have been enough. I think outright termination would have been a little bit too much because you don't want to lose your culture. You don't want to pull a total 180 overnight, which that's what they're going to try to do up there in Madison, Wisconsin with Luke Fickell arriving, and we'll see how that plays out for the Wisconsin Badgers. But I did agree that something needed to happen, and to an extent something did. They took some measures, but was it strong enough for me to be happy? No. I think it's a very, very poor look, and I think in most people's eyes out there, whether you're a Hawkeye fan or not, it looks like Iowa now has set the bar pretty low. It just looks that way optically. It looks that way, it reads that way, it smells that way. It just does. So I do not think it was strong enough, what they did. So if they do this, 7 games, 25 points or more per game, in the eyes of this contract, it'll be a success. The season will be a success story. Let's all hail offensive coordinator Brian Ferentz. We're doing great. But in my eyes, it wouldn't be. It just would be, that's normally what we've seen from this program. And to me, it really shows, once again, the nepotism that is running wild within the football program itself. We all know who's pulling the strings. We all know who the marionette puppet master is there. It is head coach Kirk Ferentz, who is merely protecting his son. And as a father of 2, I totally get that. Would that be a tough decision to fire or to publicly embarrass your own blood, your son or your daughter? Absolutely it would be. Okay, I get that. All right? But it still really shows that Brian Ferentz is primarily running the offense that his father, Kirk Ferentz, wants. And that's one thing I think a lot of Iowa fans tend to forget, that Kirk Ferentz is absolutely in control of this offense, guys. It's not Brian Ferentz. Kirk Ferentz is getting what he wants. And to say it's just on Brian, okay, I already said this earlier in the episode, I'll say it one more time, there are so many things that need to be fixed. It can't just fall on one person or one unit. Maybe it's personnel, it's the scheme, it's how they've developed players recently in the among the offensive unit. It's the offensive line, which has been dreadful. It's the routes of the receivers. The receivers themselves, if you watch games, they don't get any separation. There is so many things to say. It's primarily this one or even 2 things, all right? Somebody has to take the fall. Someone's got to be the scapegoat. But I think Brian Ferentz needs to be that person because he has the power to make changes. But then you also have to say Kirk Ferentz also has a big part in being the scapegoat ultimately for this and the architect of these Iowa offensive struggles. Okay, and also Gary Barta. Gary Barta could outright terminate Brian Ferentz as well. All right, that doesn't have to be made by the head coach. So Gary Barta has something to do with this as well. Okay, and overall, I am not happy with the response. Okay, I'm glad something happened, but I totally disagree with what has transpired and happened. I would have been a little bit more on the punishable side of things, but like I said, I would have said either you're terminated or you're going to have to take another position in the offense. That's what I would have said. That's just me. But please, that's it for today's episode, guys. Let me know what you think about my insight, my critique, my thoughts about this. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Did I leave something out? Let your voice be heard. I want to hear from you, black and gold fans, college football fans alike. Get involved, comment, like, share, subscribe. I should be back next week. I'm going to keep probably doing an episode a week during the off season. Until then, guys, have a great Easter. It's Easter weekend coming up. Have a great holiday. Travel safe. Enjoy your time with your friends, your family, or whatever it is that you do. So thank you once again. Please like, share, subscribe. Let's get involved. I want to find and spread the word of the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog and rally more college football fans just like you to the channel. So thank you very much. Until next time, I appreciate you joining me on the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.